Hello and welcome to the Climbing Daily Friday Gear Show, and welcome to the Frasassi Climbing Festival. It's the end of the day here. We've got a beer, and I've got Jacopo Larcher, one of, let's be honest, the best trad climbers in the world currently at the moment. He's being modest, but he is. Now, today we thought we'd have a little chat about Tribe, because that's something you've sent really recently, and the kind of equipment and gear that you use for that. So, first of all, congratulations.
Thanks.
That climb looked like just such an epic in every single way.
Yeah, for me it's a really special, or it was a really special line, and I invested so much time to do it. It's something like really meaningful for me, and the gear was obviously a really big part. Like it played a really big, important role in the whole process, because I had to trust it. I use like different kind of gear. The route is mostly protected by cams.
Mm-hmm.
I just use 2 offset nuts on the first part, and some really small like slider ball nuts on the upper part.
Before we get into the sort of specifics of the gear, and I should just say it's a little bit noisy here because it's a little bit noisy here, so I hope you can put up with that. The route, I want to talk about grading very quickly, and I know this is something that you don't necessarily want to talk about that much, but a lot of people have been saying, number one, I really respect the fact that you haven't graded it.
Thanks.
I love the fact that it's just the route and it is what it is, but it is really, really difficult. We're talking E10, E11 territory, aren't we? So I know you don't want a specific grade, but it's up there with the hardest trad routes in the world.
Yeah, like I stick to my decision not to grade it, so I don't want to talk about numbers, but I can say that for me it was definitely the hardest route that I've done. Maybe it was my anti-style, maybe, I don't know, I just really sucked, but it's like I invested so much time in it and had to try really, really hard, and I'm sure that's the hardest thing I've done so far.
Awesome, man. Well, as I said, like a huge respect for not actually grading that. That's amazing. So let's talk about gear, because it's a trad climb. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about bolts here, so the potential for a ground fall or for that gear to fail is always real with a trad route. How that crux section, how dangerous is that? And if you had sort of binned it off the high point, would you be okay? You think the gear's good enough to hold you?
So I think the crux section is actually pretty safe. Especially like the first boulder is protected by really like big and bomber cams, and the second crux is protected by okay cams. So I was really like, I felt safe in that section. The scariest part was the first section, which was also the easiest one. And the first piece of gear is quite high up, so I used some crash pads like to feel more safe. And and once I reached basically the start of the business, I felt safe. The top out, so after you reach the final jog, let's say, is protected just by some small ball nuts, so you don't really want to fall there. I don't think you will hit the ground, you just go for a really big ride. But yeah.
I love when pro climbers say that, because your idea of a really big ride is a lot bigger than my idea of a really big ride. You're a Black Diamond athlete,
Yeah.
so I presume when we talk cams, we're talking C4s?
Yeah, exactly. At the time, the Z4s, like the new cams, weren't out, so I basically used just C4s, except for one ultralight number 3 and one ultralight number 4, because the C4s don't get to that size.
Oh, okay, so you use the ultralights purely because of size, not
Yeah.
necessarily because of weight on something like that.
No, just because of size, because the first part was quite easy, so compared to the real business of the route. So I didn't mind like bringing some extra weight. It's fine.
So cams for the hard bit. Any nuts? Any sort of passive protection? You mentioned the ball nuts, but lower down, are there any nuts used in the route?
I actually use just one nut, an offset nut,
Okay.
because it fits like better in this little flake. That was the first piece of gear actually, and all the rest of the route is protected by cams and ball nuts.
Okay. So offset nuts. This is something that some people, including me for a long time, couldn't quite get my head around, because I've always used normal shaped nuts. Why would you want an offset nut? What is an offset nut, first of all?
Well, it's like a normal nut, but like shaped differently. Like it's like a triangle basically, and it fits way better in like, offset cracks or little slots, and it just fits really nice. Sits really nice in in like V shapes, and it feels more stable.
Let's say you were doing a route sort of on site, less hard than Tribe. Would you bring like a separate set of offset nuts, or is it just something you might have a few kind of mixed in with the nuts just in case?
I normally don't bring normal nuts when I try something on site. I just bring a full set of offset nuts, like from like medium one to really small ones, and then cams.
Okay. So ball nuts higher up. What is a ball nut?
Wow, it's hard to explain. It's like this really small metal plate with half of a ball on top that can just slide, and it's held by a cable. And you can just like there is a trigger. You can pull the ball like back, and you can fit the piece of gear in the crack, and then it basically just expands.
Okay. And
it works like a normal nut.
Yeah, I was going to put my beer down here. So it kind of slides in, and then you expand it out, and then it's similar. I've always thought it's a bit like if a cam had a baby and the baby was a nut. That would sort of be a ball nut, because you've kind of got the squeezy bit, but then you've got the nut bit. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, I think it's something like in between a cam and a nut, basically. And it just when the cracks are really, really thin, then you normally use ball nuts, because there aren't any cams that will fit in that kind of cracks.
And with that route, it's overhanging. Did you have to sort of play around with extending bits of gear to make sure there wasn't drag, or to make sure there was more, when you fall and it's not bang straight onto the pit of gear? Did you play around with that at all?
I played more with like ropes, so I decided to climb with 2 ropes, just because like the gear is not like on a straight line. So I used 2 ropes like to feel more safe, and also to avoid like rope drag. And I had to extend a lot the 2 pieces of gear before the roof, before the first cracks of the route, because otherwise the rope drag would be too bad.
So when you've got one of these routes, obviously this is, as you just said earlier, it's a long process. When you looked at that line originally, did you know there was gear on it, or was there something that you discovered? You were like, oh, look, there's that thing there. Oh, look, it can take this piece of gear. What's your process to finding gear placements?
But especially on this route was a really like special process for me, because I realized from the beginning on that it was possible to just climb it on gear, to protect it with normal gear. But I basically started to try it when I got into trail climbing. So at the beginning it felt like something impossible, super scary, and I was sure that I will never I couldn't fall on that route, because it would be like too dangerous. And year after year I realized that actually the route wasn't so dangerous, but it was just really hard. So for me it was really nice to witness this process. And yeah, regarding gear, it basically just, in that case, I just upsell down the route, and I, with a lot of gear on my harness, and I started to play around and figure out, like where should I place what, and see the best solutions.
So you've obviously climbed a lot of very difficult trad. What's your head game like? Do you get nervous on these routes, or is gear for you one of those things that you've worked out, you know where the dangerous bits are, and you just get on with the climbing? Because for me, when I've got a route that's scary for me, the gear is the only thing I ever think about. But obviously for you, you're at a different kind of level. So does it ever really affect you?
I think like everyone works the same. So for us it's the same, and it also depends. Sometimes you just have really bad days and you just get super scared, even if you don't have to get scared, and the other way around. Sometimes you just feel super safe even if you are in a dangerous situation. But most of the time, with the experience, you kind of know if the gear will hold a fall or not, and that makes everything different, And we always try to just focus on the climbing, but it's hard to completely step back from thinking about falling.
That is so good to hear. Honestly, it really is. Jacopo, congratulations on that route. It was awesome to watch it progress. And the North Face film, I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can go and check it out. It's on YouTube. It's free to watch. Do go and check it out. And also there's links down below for the gear Jacopo's been talking about today. So if you want to see what he's been using, you can see it below. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As the sun goes down here, we're going to have another beer. And I'll see you guys soon.
It's beer time.
Ciao.